Day, and welcome to Plymouth Profiles. Plymouth Profiles is an opportunity to meet with people from the greater Plymouth area. And joining us today, we have two people who are very much involved in public access TV. I'm delighted to welcome, once again, returning to Plymouth Profiles, the CEO of PAC-TV, Nancy Richard. Nancy, welcome.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Nancy, thank you for being here. And you've brought a colleague with you today.
I have indeed. My friend Mark Linde, who runs the Brockton Access organization. It's similar to PAC-TV. It's our counterpart to the west. He is the station manager, and he's been there even longer than I have.
And Mark, welcome.
Nice,
and of
Steve.
course, we've met before once when I did a show with you.
Absolutely.
So Nancy, for people that don't know you, before we get into public access, tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, let's see. I was a stay-at-home mother until I was 35. I went back to college and got several degrees in a very short amount of time and didn't know what I was going to do when I got out. I studied English, which somebody once told me was almost as bad as studying history. When I got out of graduate school, I answered an ad in the newspaper for someone to act as the director of administration for the Access Center on the Cape, which is near where I live. I live in Barnstable, and I got the job. I was completely surprised. I had all the skills, but I don't know why I was surprised, but I did. And then 4 years later, there was an opportunity here in Plymouth, and I applied for the job up here and got this job. So I started off as the executive director. It was a brand new station. We didn't have a premises, we didn't have any equipment, we didn't have anything. We did have some startup cash, and over the course of 6 months, we went from 0 to 60, essentially. I started it in my car.
What year was that?
1997.
And when you say startup cash, for people that don't realize, how does public access TV get financed, at least in Plymouth?
Well, actually, in all of the 4 towns that we serve, it works the same way. The cable company and the town come to an agreement with a contract to fund public access and to provide 3 channels so that they can, so that we can put public, educational, and government access on the cable lineup. And once they decide the PEG funding, which is public, education, and government, the town receives, or actually we do, receives a certain percentage of the cable revenues. So in the case of Plymouth, the cable company sets aside 5% of the gross cable revenues, and we get 2/3 of it, and the schools get the other 1/3.
Good, good. So Mark, you're over in Brockton. Tell us a little about your background.
Okay, my background is I got bit by the TV bug early. Brockton High School had an early TV studio, black and white, back in the day. I loved it, but I wanted to do something else. I was going to do political science in law school. They changed my mind. I went to George Washington. I went to Stonehill. I ended up at University of Miami. Tough job, but somebody had to go there. Okay, but I didn't speak Spanish, so I couldn't stay in Florida. So spring break senior year, I came home to visit mom and dad. Everybody else goes to Florida for spring break. I came home. Cable company was actually hiring. It was in its startup infancy stages. It was 1983. The contract had been signed in Brockton, and I was one of the first 3 original employees. I then went from Brockton to Holbrook. Stayed with Continental Cablevision back in the day. Then I went to a company called Mass Cablevision, which later turned into Cablevision Industries. Went to Sharon, Foxborough for 6 years, became the regional program director, and the guy who owned the company sold it to Time Warner. So I was management, and at home in Brockton where I lived, they were hiring a new general manager back in 1994. So I knew the handwriting was on the wall. I was a regional manager. I knew I would be dismantling my department. So luckily I was fortunate enough to be hired a second time by some of the same folks that hired me to start. I started bottom of the barrel, ended up top of the barrel, and I've been there for 21 years. Terrific. I teach at Massasoit, TV production and public speaking in my spare time.
That's a good resume. And Mark, you know, people sometimes may hear, well, the city of Brockton, you know, down here in Plymouth and Greater Plymouth, it seems a little remote. To me, it isn't far away at all, because we're all in the same county. Professionally, I travel to Brockton all the time to go to court, but as a child, growing up in Kingston, we didn't always go to Plymouth. We went to Brockton for shopping, for other things, because Brockton really was more of the hub in those days. So I think there's still many of us that view Brockton and Plymouth as being very close. So it's not surprising to see the two of you.
It's a bus
company.
Right.
Sure. Okay, and Brockton is the only city in Plymouth County. Okay, the shopping not as much, but downtown's coming back. It's actually experiencing a rebound right now. There's a lot of development. It's starting to look better. We've had Governor Patrick was very kind to Brockton. We have a newly renovated library. We have a new district courthouse. Things are looking good. The City Hall Plaza was just redone, and there's housing in downtown and retail going in downtown for the first time. We got reconnected to the train. That was the big thing. We did not have train service from 1959 for a long time. We've had it for about maybe 10 or 15 years. And we even have the Cape Flyer now. We can actually get on the train and go down to Hyannis for 25 bucks and turn back around and come back to Brockton.
So why haven't I seen you for the last 6 months?
You can pick me up. I know. We haven't figured that out. We've known each other forever, and we get busy with our day-to-day jobs and families and everything. And, you know, it's fun because it's all community. It's all community, what we do. I met Nancy at a conference down in I think we had it in her conference room where she worked in Hyannis.
Well, it was in Yarmouth, actually.
In Yarmouth at the time. And it's a small industry. There's a whole bunch of us in it, and we're all really good friends. But we usually don't see each other unless we go to a national conference someplace on the other side of the country. It's crazy.
And then you say, we really live close and
well, the two of
close.
us, we'll meet for lunch every once in a while in Hanson. It's kind of halfway in between, so we'll do that sometimes. But lately, we've been just very, very busy. It's been very busy in both of our access centers.
Absolutely.
So, Nancy, you cover the towns of Kingston, Pembroke, Duxbury, and Plymouth.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about kind of what are the big things that are going on right now in public access here out of this studio, because I know this show wouldn't happen if it weren't for public access.
Well, in terms of public access, we have a regular news show, that's a big thing for us. We started that a few years ago, and the woman that runs it, she's the news director, Kim Mio, has done a fabulous job building that up. So that's really brought us a lot more into the forefront. Public access is a very interesting animal. It's a free speech mechanism. It's an opportunity for people to actually express their opinions about what's going on in their communities without being censored. It's a First Amendment forum. And a lot of times people don't understand what it is. By having a news show on the public access, it gives public access somewhat of a handle, and we're very fortunate in Plymouth and the towns that we serve to have enough resources to be able to do it. Most access centers are either too small or too remote or whatever to be able to do it on a regular basis. That's one of our very exciting things. Another thing that we do focus on at PAC-TV, which is unusual, I think, in most access centers, is we do a lot of work with community service. We have a lot of nonprofit interaction. Our staff, we have an outreach coordinator that deals with nonprofits. That's Donna Vecchiarello Rodriguez.
Yes.
She has an amazing interaction and connection with the nonprofit community. And so we have them in a lot. We teach them how to use the equipment, but we also do work for them sometimes because it's hard with nonprofits. They're limited staff, limited budgets. They have an important message to get out to the community, and we really feel ourselves as an opportunity or a way of interacting with the community that they would not normally have. So basically the hub of the wheel. So they can come in here, get information out to the community, either by using the cable system or by putting the pieces up on their websites and connecting with them. And we've had a really good success with that, and we keep expanding our community services.
What would be some examples of some of the nonprofits?
Well, we work with the United Way, we work with the Arc of Greater Plymouth, we've worked with a lot of the different smaller organizations, South Shore Community Action Council. Many of them, we do public service announcements in our studios regularly. Every quarter we do a whole series of those. Those are done by us for them without charge. We also do a show now. It's a new show called Building Community, which is about the health and wellness of the community and how these nonprofits and other agencies can support a healthy community. So that's another show that's being produced. Donna actually is the host for that, and she does a fabulous job with that.
And I know that you also help nonprofits with their fundraising.
Yep,
having
we do
done
that.
the Rotary auction.
We've done the Rotary auction, but we've also done, we did a telethon with the town of Plymouth a few years ago to raise money for Shishikahama, Japan, when they had the tsunami. So there are a lot of different things that we do in the public access sphere. The government access sphere is actually perhaps even larger. We do a lot of meetings in the town of Plymouth. I think probably 3 or 4 nights a week we're over there. So that's very good. We also do shows in the studio. This is one of them. Local officials, either elected or people that work for the town, come in and do regular programs on the channel to get information out to the viewers.
Good.
So
Mark, you heard a little bit about Nancy's group does, and my experience with you was a county type of show, if you will, with county official John Buckley, Register of Deeds.
Which is also done here.
We do that down here too.
He does one here and one in Brockton, which is great.
Yeah.
We're similar but different. Let me tell you how. My board of directors is appointed by the mayor of the city of Brockton. So we do not do news. We specifically do not do news because if we did news and we did it the right way, A, it would take too many resources to do it, but B, we really couldn't do the news because if it becomes controversial or something, they're going to forget that we are a public access entity that has freedom of speech. So we do a magazine show. We do a show called One North Main, which is where we're located at 1 North Main, and we do the good news about Brockton. Brockton gets a bad rap every day, all the time on the Boston media. It's a good place. We have our issues, we have our problems. We're a city. Okay, we have all sorts of social services and things like that. We have a homeless shelter right across the street from my studio practically. Okay, so we do good news about Brockton. I do a show called Greater Brockton that's similar to the show Nancy was talking about, that Donna hosts, which basically showcases and spotlights the nonprofits. The real strength of Brockton is diversity. We have a huge Cape Verdean population, a huge Haitian population. So we have a couple of Haitian shows, a couple of Cape Verdean shows. We had a show in Spanish. We're working to get it back. A show in Greek, okay, a show in Portuguese, and a lot. And that's like the daily newspaper on TV for those communities. Sure. I have people that have done shows longer than I've been there. I've been there 21 years, and I have people that have done 900 shows over the course of that long period of time. My Greek guy is in Greece right now on the Greek Isle, hopefully being able to access his bank funds. But you know, he was the president of my board. We have long-term members over there that are really dedicated and committed to the community. Plus, we do the education piece. We do all of the coverage of all the high school sports. Brockton sports, boxer sports is huge, specifically football. Soccer has quite a following with all the different groups that like soccer is their football. We do basketball, we do hockey, then we do a lot of government meetings, not as many as Nancy. We are kind of limited because some of our officials don't like to be on TV and some of them do. The city councilors love to be on TV because it's an election year. The school committee members do. We're going to get into all the election programming. I'm wearing another hat now. I just became chairman of the Brockton Democratic City Committee, so the Democratically Speaking show goes with the chairmanship, so I get to be on TV and I'm going to interview all the Democrats. But being a good public access person I have a show for the Republicans to be on, and then another show for the unenrolleds to be on, so everyone gets on TV. I look at it as an educational role. What we do is showcase the community and make it look good. Okay, there are a few people, we have 2 shows on specifically that bash the government. That's when the government forgets again that public access is free speech, and that sometimes they don't differentiate between us as the station doing the show and the volunteers doing the show. One of the guys that did the show just moved to South Carolina, so that show's going away, so that ceases to be a problem anymore. But the other one that's there, he's moving to Walpole, so I'll be down to, but I'll probably pick up another one. A good friend of mine in Whitman, Steve Roy, had a show called Political Parodies where they used to make fun of the selectmen every week, and that used to get him into a pack of trouble, but he had to explain look at, this is the public's right to be on TV, to say that, as long as it's not defamation or slander, then you're okay. But people can go right up to that line. Election time is sometimes my most favorite and my least favorite, because people will slam other candidates, and I always like to make sure that they have an opportunity to respond, and people can, you know, you want to see who your candidates are. We're watching the national spectacle right now with Mr. Trump. That happens on the local level too, as you probably well know.
Yeah. You know, Mark, you brought up so many things. I wanted to ask you, though, about the diversity, because we often forget that, I think, here in Plymouth, and yet I was in court this morning in Plymouth District Court, and first the Portuguese interpreter was called to help with one of the parties to a case, and then the Spanish interpreter was called because, again, right in our courthouse in the courtroom, we had people that English is a second language, and they didn't really understand the proceedings, and so it was very important. So it strikes me that to have the cable shows in their native languages probably is helpful to get out some information.
It really is. What I'd like them also to do, and some of them have been successful with, and some of I haven't. I'm like, teach me your language, teach me your culture and your customs. I'm trying to get some of these shows to put on, like, do like basic words in those languages, so someone like me, the links are all together with, like, everybody loves food, doesn't matter what culture it is, everybody loves music. Okay, we got a big, humongous Cape Verdean festival happening this weekend. We have the gala dinner, then we have the festival on Sunday. Sometimes I don't know what I'm eating, but it tastes good. Okay, and I learn about it, and I want to do more educational with some of that stuff. I also told the folks that do the show, you've done the show for 20 years. People are used to seeing your face. Put on a young person on the show to be a co-host, because you're not necessarily getting the younger generation watching your show. Get them involved. One of my producers did that, and the show became more popular than it already was because he put on a young, very attractive Greek young woman, and people started watching the show. And I just think that you want to get the next generation involved, because right now it's a challenge to get people to watch regular TV, cable TV specifically, because they have so many other choices. They're online, they're on Hulu, they're on, and the cable, HBO has just come up with an internet option only, that you don't have to have cable TV to get. Our funding comes from the cable subscription. So if people cut the cord and there's no cable TV, and we have a pretty high cable penetration. There's a lot of cable dishes, I mean, not the cable dishes, satellite dishes on the triple deckers in Brockton, which means they don't have it. But we keep a lot of those people watching because they can see programming of their own community in their own language on our channel.
And Nancy, you talked a little bit about government bashing shows, and I know you've had a few of those over the years.
We have over the years, and actually right now we don't really have one, but I'm sure that in the future we'll get another one. It's part of the free speech thing. It does make life interesting. I've been called by irate people over the years saying, wow, how can you let them say that on television? How can you let them come in there and say that it's not true? And the response has always been, well, come on in and we'll tape you saying the rebuttal. You can do this. And it does allow people to see the First Amendment in action. It's hard sometimes. It's very hard because people do not like hearing other people say nasty things about them on TV, and they don't feel that it's fair, but it's part of the thing. And if you're a public figure, you know that you've got a target on you somewhere.
Nancy, I remember our dear friend Phyllis Hughes, who would often talk about people contacting her as the publisher of the newspaper because they were upset about something that was written. And it's the same thing, and I think now maybe you get a little more on the public access TV than maybe the paper gets it, because the paper seems to have toned down over the years, maybe because of cost cuts or whatever. But you know, it strikes me that whenever you're in a position, whether it's the newspaper or here the TV, that's going to happen. That people aren't going to always like what they hear, but I presume that both sides eventually get to be heard one way or the other.
That's true, and I really think that when people start to look at what they are able to say on TV that might promote maybe their religion or perhaps their opinion on something that isn't perhaps local, and then they look at, well, I'm allowed to say these things on TV, so I can't if I try to stop this person from saying what they want to say, then someone could try to stop me. And that's really one of the wonderful things about our country is we don't make the distinction. The only distinctions we make are the slander, the libel, and obscenity, and that is all dictated by the courts. It's not our decision. As a cable station, or as the transmission of the signal so that people can get the cable station, we don't have a filter. We don't just make those decisions. We don't come to someone and say, well, you just slandered so-and-so, so we're going to take your show off. That has to be dealt with by the parties that are involved in the slander, or the courts.
So Nancy, from the time you first began with PAC-TV till the present, it's grown.
Oh yeah, it started off with me. Now there are 16 people on staff, plus we have news reporters, we have government videographers that work by the job, so we have quite a lot of people. Plus we went from 1 town to 4 towns, so we're running all over the place. We've also expanded our mission a lot over the years to include more things. It's not really just about having classes teaching people how to operate a camera or edit a video and then opening the doors and expecting them to walk in the door. We now go out into the community and interact with the community a lot more than we ever have, and we plan to continue improving that and expanding that over the next decade.
So is that with handheld cameras, or are you talking about videos like at the town buildings?
No, I mean, we go out and we reach out into the community and say, what can we do? What can we help? How can we help you? How can we expand your reach? How can we get your message out to the public? What can we do to be useful to you? The way I see it is, how has PAC-TV become part of the fabric of the community? We've been here a long time. Most of the people who live here know about us. Once in a while when I'm at home, I'll run into someone who lives in Plymouth, but I might run into them somewhere down in Barnstable. I was at the hospital the other day and I ran into someone who lives in Plymouth. And I said, and they said, oh yeah, I live up in Plymouth. And I said, oh, I work at PAC-TV. Oh, PAC-TV. They knew right away what it was. So we have quite a recognition rate around here. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we're always looking at ways that we can improve the way we serve the community.
And I know certainly as a town official, I appreciate that you're available for my orientation, for town meetings, for certain types of government shows that really allow us to deliver the information in one of many forms. I mean, I think we realize that you can't always deliver it just in the newspaper, just on the radio, just through the mail, that people receive their information in different ways. Yeah. And this is another way to receive it.
One of the things that we did several years back is we expanded our programming so that people could get it on video on demand, which has been very successful. It allows it's government meeting. We're not doing the public access actually, but we're doing the government meetings and anything we do for the school districts that we serve, not in Plymouth, but in Kingston and Pembroke. And it's really been a great help for people, because a lot of people can't be available, can't sit down and watch television when the meeting is going out live or when we have the repeats, but they can click on the link and watch it on their computers. So more people can be involved with their government, and the interaction daily with the government allows people to become more involved. And I said this at a selectmen's meeting in Kingston last week. I said, you can never fit everybody that lives in this town in this meeting room. So really the only way that you can get to a selectmen's meeting for the most part is if you watch it on TV.
Sure.
So.
Mark, you've heard what Nancy said about when she first started until now. Have you seen big changes in Brockton?
Yes, Brockton, we're into our 3rd cable contract. The first cable contract I worked there, and I worked for the Access Corporation / the cable company, and we did do a news show. Okay, we did a daily news show. There were 5 of us. It was quite the feat to try to pull off a news show with 5. It then evolved to the public education and government, where the cable company employees actually covered the government meetings and the school sports. And there was a lot of money involved. There was a lot of extra money involved off to the side. When I got there 21 years ago, they wanted to shift it back to real public access and education and government. So we started with public, then we picked up ed, then we did government. The government that we do, the mayor, our mayor who's been mayor, he's in the second year of a 2-year term, specifically wanted all the meetings on the City of Brockton website. So all of our council meetings, all of our finance committee meetings, all of our school committee meetings are right on the city website. He then decided, he hired one of my best people to work for him as his director of communications, who's like a social media guru. So he went social media, and he has a show. He's done 50 shows in the year and a half that he's been mayor. That's pretty impressive. He has pretty much a show a week. Like, we just opened a brand new supermarket in downtown Brockton for the first time in 25 years, Vincente's Tropical Market, and he gave a tour as the mayor through the whole market because it's a linchpin to part of his economic redevelopment. He'll go out to the concerts and things like that. So we got government officials communicating on the channel. We had the former city council president do a monthly show every month with each one of his colleagues, because there's 11 city councilors and there's 12 months. I kicked off the first show with him and he did it. And we're now, all of a sudden, we're really popular because it's election time. Everybody wants to be on TV, and that gets to be interesting. But it's changed quite a bit because of the technology. Okay, the technology has made it easier. We have people that do shows in their house. They'll edit it at home. They'll have a Mac computer or a Final Cut Pro system, or Adobe Creative Suite or whatever, and they'll bring us the media. They don't even use the facility necessarily. Some of them might even own their own cameras and their equipment. DSLR cameras, which are more still cameras, also do video. So people, we get it in all sorts of different ways. And before, it used to be you put it on a tape, you put it in the machine, and the automated playback system hits play. Now you got to digitize it and render it and export it and all the things that I don't know. Quite honestly, I'm old school, but I have younger people that work for me that know that stuff better than me, and I manage the place, but I still run a camera. I love to go out and do a shoot and run a camera. Got to be careful of the word shoot. I tell all my students at Massasoit, don't call things a shoot. I made a big mistake once covering an event in Boston where Hillary Clinton was at it, and you don't ever tell the Secret Service that you're going to shoot the First Lady, because then you're detained for about 2 hours when they go through all your stuff. But I try not to call it that anymore. It's a production, and I'm so used to saying we tape everything, but we record everything. You don't tape anything anymore. There's no such thing as a tape, and we don't film anything because it's not done on film. People don't get that. And Boston TV viewers are sophisticated. We're in the number, I think it's the 7th market in the country. So they're used to seeing good video, good audio. Cable back in the day when Nancy and I first got involved in it didn't look so good and didn't sound so good. Yeah, nowadays, the professional standards have increased.
Although they have a certain charm.
The content's always been there on public education and government access, but the technology didn't catch up till recently, till you built facilities like this. I watched Nancy go from the back of her car to a house on Court Street to the other studio that was on Court in the back over to here, and just watching the transformation. We bought a former bank, the old Brockton Savings Bank building, that was 26,000 square feet. We bought it as a foreclosure and built it into 2 TV studios and 3 edit suites, and we own a whole building that cost what a house would have cost, because the place was sitting in downtown Brockton, dead as a doornail, and we started the economic revitalization of that part of downtown. And now my parking lot is actually worth a lot of money, because parking is at a premium in downtown Brockton, so I'm letting the city use it for the parking authority to alleviate while they're doing all the downtown construction. So we're a good partner with the city, and you know, it's fun, it's community. Now, as far as Nancy goes, talking about people seeing her, I live in the community I work in. I've lived in Brockton most of my whole life. I can't go shopping without someone saying something to me. Plus, I'm involved in local politics, so I'll tend to go to
Rotary Club too.
I'll tend to go to Easton or Stoughton or West Bridgewater to shop, just so someone can't either complain to me about something one way or the other, or you don't often get compliments. Something we just did that's completely unique is we just lost our great state senator, Tom Kennedy. We decided as a public service to the community, because they couldn't fit everybody in the church to see him, to record the funeral mass. And we put it on TV. The last time we had done that was when I first worked for them in '84 with David Crosby, the former mayor of Brockton. And it was in the same church. So I knew exactly what to do, and we covered the mass and we put it on, and I just got through making 50 DVD copies for the entire family as a gift to the family, because it's a huge family. And I had an older lady, she must have been in her 90s. She called me up last week and she said, Mark, she wanted to do an anonymous compliment. And then one of my staff members said, if you want to talk to Mark, you got to tell me who you are. So she told me who she was, and she said, first of all, she couldn't go. She couldn't get there, just not well enough to go. She said, you brought it into my living room. And that's what we do every day. The meeting being one of them, because most people don't go to a meeting, but they watch it on TV. In Sharon, when I worked in Sharon, they used to watch it on TV, get angry enough to get in the car and come down to the meeting.
Oh, we've had that.
Okay, at town meetings specifically.
We've had that.
Brockton is a city, so it doesn't have a town meeting form of government, but they'll let you know, and if something doesn't go on, we had a signal problem recently, which we kind of turned lemons into lemonade. We had a bad piece of fiber over at one of the schools, and it was jittering all over the place. I got called before the council to explain why we were keeping it off TV. Well, we weren't keeping it off of TV. A fiber got damaged, and they fixed it, and now it's good. But it caused me a lot of heartache and stress.
Well, that's a nice story about the lady that you brought it to her. And you were just saying that in terms of Kingston. Mm-hmm. But Nancy, are there people that actually watch a show and then come to an event?
Yeah, actually, we've had people come down to the selectmen's meeting to waggle their finger at the selectmen because they didn't like what they were talking about. That's happened over the years. We also have had the same experience with getting a flood of phone calls because the signal wasn't working well, or somebody coming down to town hall and saying, tell that guy to turn his mic on. So we know people are out there watching
if
it.
They call about the signal. And interesting, when I have town meeting, I tell people that I can never guarantee when their particular warrant article will be heard. And we've had the experience sometimes when people watch on TV and then decide they're going to run down because they think their article's coming and they miss it. So, sometimes you can't rely so much by watching. Sometimes you have to actually be there.
Yeah,
but it's a great service to have that. Mm-hmm. So, Nancy, Pembroke wasn't always a part of your community.
No, we've only had Pembroke with us for 3 years.
And how's that worked out? Great.
Actually, it's really worked out well. The town of Pembroke, we do public education and government. So we started up an educational access program in Pembroke schools, which has just taken off like a rocket. It's been we really have a great relationship with their town officials. I went to their selectmen's meeting a while back and just gave them an update about what PAC-TV was doing and talking about the meetings we're covering and how things are going in the schools. And they were all sitting there going, yeah, it was a good decision.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it was. We're very, very pleased with how it worked out.
And do you find that the access in the various communities is similar? I mean, is it similar in Pembroke, Kingston, Duxbury, Plymouth?
Actually, well, Plymouth, we started here in Plymouth, so we've been around. We're the hometown, organization. Kingston, same. We've served Kingston for almost as long as Plymouth. Duxbury, it just happens that I've just done a whole series of update meetings at selectmen's meetings, but we have great relationships with all of our towns. And in Duxbury, the amount of meeting coverage is ramping up. We do a lot of meetings in Kingston and Plymouth, obviously, because we've been doing it for a long time. And what Mark was saying earlier, or maybe it was you, I think, about how some of the officials don't want to be on TV and then others really do. It's been a bit of a hard sell in some of the towns that didn't have it before. Duxbury and Pembroke have not had coverage of all of those government meetings all along, and some of the chairmen of the committees are like, I don't know if I want it to be on. So we've been working with them, and it's coming. Slow process, but it's coming.
Not a problem in Plymouth. people are willing to be on?
No, not at all. In fact, we could probably do 20 meetings a week in Plymouth, and everybody would be. With the new town hall, too, we're looking at different ways where we might be able to have extra meeting rooms. We can't, obviously, you can't go live on the same channel at the same time, but we could certainly tape more. So.
Which is interesting because people don't understand on cable how live works. Live works where you have a drop in a building to be able to go live. It's not like live on TV where you have the satellite truck outside and you're raising the microwave transmitter.
Right.
People don't get that. Like we have a couple of locations. We have a baseball stadium in Brockton. Well, why don't you do the Rocks game live?
Right.
2 reasons. It's a commercial entity, number 1, and number 2, it's not a municipal building, so I can't go live there. And people don't get that. So you have to tell them what the capabilities are. Like the funeral, we would have live streamed the funeral had the over 100-year-old church actually had an internet connection in there. But since they didn't, they got it almost live. It was on within 24 hours. We pride ourselves trying to, if we're not live, we get something on in a quick period of time so people can see it.
So, Mark, do you have any kind of wish list of things you'd like to do going forward?
My wish list is to get, we have our studios downtown. We have a high school studio that the Brockton School Department has, and we have a community college. We're fortunate enough to have Massasoit in Brockton. I would like to see compatible equipment in all 3 facilities. One thing I'm going to be pitching is to my staff, and my funding is different from Nancy's. My money goes through the city. I'm not going to say more than that. I don't get all of it. Okay, I get some of it. I want a technician that can fix the equipment in all 3 locations, but housed in my building, so I can do that. We just managed to get a new mobile studio. We tend to do a lot of stuff in the field.
Well,
okay,
with sports.
With sports, and that's why we needed that. But that was a costly endeavor, but we patched the money together in order to do it. I had a 1982 GMC that I had been given from Continental that we've retrofitted. It was on its 2nd engine, and it decided to die during the holiday parade. So I had to get a new one. We don't have HD capability on the channels because Comcast won't give it to us. Okay, so in Brockton, it's going to be a lot longer. We don't have competition in Brockton. Brockton doesn't have Verizon. Brockton was redlined because Verizon chose not to go into a poorer community where they can't guarantee their income. So Brockton only has Comcast, so people only have one choice. I'd love to see competition so we would have funding from more than one source. I hope that the cable part of the product doesn't get so discounted that our funding doesn't go away, because the internet part and the phone part, when you pay your cable bill, is more than the cable part of the bill, and that's where our funding is derived from. Like to do a little bit more like Channel 2 where we have program sponsorships. I don't want to compete against my nonprofits for grants and donations, but I want to be able to support ourselves, and no one ever said a nonprofit can't raise money, but it's how you raise the money and how you're able to do it. This program is made possible by a grant from, we have W.B. Mason in Brockton. They probably, if they can spend $750,000 on one Super Bowl spot 10 years ago, they can spend $7,500 to cover the whole football season and put our football games on without commercializing them. I don't believe public access should be too commercialized or government. We have colleagues in the industry that the town meetings are sponsored. Okay, that's not my cup of tea. I didn't go into this to be advertising. I used to work for the cable company, and I had a regional channel that I programmed. We had 15 towns, and they wanted me to commercialize it. I said, that's not what you hired me for. And that's, luckily they sold the company and I got to move to Brockton. I never had to do it. I didn't want to do the real estate show and all of that stuff. And I'm in community television because it's community.
Nancy, what about you? Is there a wish list for PAC-TV?
PAC-TV just, we started doing strategic planning in November, and we came up with a list of goals that we want to achieve in the next 5 years. One of them is to find alternative ways of supporting ourselves if the revenues start to drop. But I think in terms of community service, we want to make sure that we provide new community services always, that we're always looking at different ways of making our organization better. we'd like to see more young people in. We work with kids. We've got a camp going on right now, which is great. We've got a bunch of kids. Well, it's not even a camp. It's a summer program. Can't say camp. It's a video program where kids come in and they learn how to produce. They're making a documentary. Last year we had shark tagging in Duxbury Harbor. It won a Telly Award, Silver Telly Award, which was really great, and the kids did a fabulous job. This year I believe they're going to a chocolate factory to watch how they make candy. So that's going to be pretty fun, and I wish I was going because I love candy. But so they're very excited. And when they come out of there, some of them continue to come back. They'll volunteer their time to work on shows. They'll help us with government meetings. So we're actually infusing enthusiasm into the next generation of videographers.
It really does happen. I mean, people say, how did you get involved in doing things like this? And some of the things I do. And I said, you know, in high school, there was an announcing staff. You talk about the faceless people speaking.
Morning announcements, right?
And so, you know, I was part of the announcing staff, and I would do morning announcements, and it just kind of you get the bug. So if you go to college, and there might be a radio station or whatever it might be.
Well, there are so many opportunities for young people in video now. Not only just working in television, but also to produce videos for websites. My daughter is working on a video game right now. She's a videographer and a musician and an artist. She's taking all of that together. Now she's taught herself how to do computer coding, which is kind of an amazing thing. She's very patient. And so she's taking this and wrapping it all together. And this is a young woman who, when I first started working in Access, she was 11 years old, and she always went around with me. She was one of those rare teenagers that actually didn't mind hanging out with her mother. And so we used to do a lot of stuff together. And she got into video young, and this is how she has progressed in her career. She's won a couple of Emmys. She's done a lot of teaching. She's worked in Hawaii doing video. So she's had quite a good career. Now she's doing computer programming and developing games. And who knows what she'll do next.
And she has a very nice Christmas CD.
Oh, she has a very nice Christmas CD because she's a very good musician. Actually, she just sent me a new song. It's all sung in Spanish, and she's playing Spanish guitar on it.
Oh, wow.
Don't ask me how that happened, but she's taught herself to do that.
Amazing.
Cool.
Yeah. But that's the type of thing that we see with kids coming through. The sky's the limit. We have up-to-date equipment. It's state-of-the-art. You can do everything that a commercial television station does, you can do here. So people can get the equipment and do all of that fun, wonderful things. And when a young person comes in and wants to use the editing software, we teach them how to do that. They run with it.
Most of my employees came from the high school. Okay, we started them with the video class, then they were in their video club, then they came to me as a volunteer and intern, then they were a part-time employee, then they were a full-time employee. Almost everyone on my staff has gone that route. We also, you know, basically, you know, like I have people, we had a video camp that the mayor of Brockton at the time wanted us to do one summer, and the young man that was in the video camp then is working for me now. Okay, he went to school for it. In Foxborough, where I was for 6 years, I had a middle school group that went from middle school all the way through high school. He has my job in Foxborough that I left when I went back to Brockton, and he teaches at New England Tech. The shyest kid on the planet, didn't like school. Video brought them alive. Sure. Okay, video, and it gave him writing skills. It gave him. I couldn't have done any of my high school sports in Foxborough because I didn't have a staff in Foxborough. I was the staff. In Brockton, I'm fortunate enough to have a few more people, but we partner with the high school to do all the high school games. That way they learn it, and then I have a great prospective employee when one of my other people leave.
So, actually, we have several people on our staff that we got that have come through starting off as high school interns, working for us in the summers when they were in college, and then became staff people later. There are a lot of jobs in Access. There really are. It's kind of an amazing sort of secret. You don't know, but it is a career path. People think that if you go to college and go to Emerson or Fitchburg or whatever, that you get your TV training and then you go to the news stations in Boston, or you go to Alberta, Canada, or someplace, right? But you can actually work in your hometown in an access center if you want to do that. And the real plus about working in access is that we have mostly normal lives rather than working on deadlines. I see those poor people standing in snowstorms or in hurricanes holding a microphone, and I'm thinking, oh, we don't have to do that, thank goodness.
Right. Well, and here in Plymouth, we have for years had PCIS as a studio, and Plymouth North High School, I know, has a beautiful studio.
Oh, they do. They have a fabulous, and with the new school, when they're doing the renovations itself, they'll have one down there too. Yeah. So we're very fortunate in Plymouth with the funding and with the people that have been doing this. It's just it's a win-win situation, and a lot of people who start off in high school segue through here doing internships as well. So we've been doing internships for a long time.
Mark, as we finish up, people that have just joined us or people have been watching, what do you want them to have as a takeaway from what you have to say about Brockton Public Access or access in general?
It helps you get involved in your community and serve your community, okay? I like to use it, I'm personalizing it a little bit. I work at Brockton Community Access. I teach at Massasoit Community College. When I ran for office, I used commitment to community as my slogan. But that's how I feel. I mean, I get passionate about it. I kind of was lucky when I worked in Foxborough and lived in Brockton. I wasn't as passionate about it, but I was. I love Foxborough. They were a great community. I'd move there tomorrow if I could afford to. Brockton is more affordable. But the whole idea, like Nancy was talking about, the deadlines. We have deadlines too, but they're not as strict. They're not as stringent. I like having an organization. We have 2 different Haitian community groups. I got asked to be on both of their boards, okay? Because I help them. I like them. They're my neighbors. They're my friends. And I would have never experienced some of the music, some of the foods, some of the traditions and cultures. That's what I like about Brockton. Brockton's a real melting pot. Like I said, Brockton gets a bad rap, but if you're from there and you live there, and we bring it live on TV. We showcase it on TV. We showcase the good that's about Brockton. There's plenty of bad things that happen, don't get me wrong, but we're able to showcase the good things. And I'm glad we're a part of it. I had an opportunity. When I first applied for my jobs, I went to Channel 10 or 12 in Providence, I forget. My professor, he went to school with the news director there. Took my resume tape, dropped it in the trash can, and told me, go work in cable or something else. And I've been doing it for 31 years. So must be doing something right, and I love it.
Nancy, what takeaway do you want people to have about Plymouth Public Access, PAC-TV, or access in general?
Well, I want to actually mirror what Mark was saying about community. Our tagline is building community through media. And we feel that our community service is a very important part of what we do. We want to be a resource for the communities that we serve, but we are part of the communities that we serve, not only as a resource, but all of our staff, we serve on different boards, we're part of the community in other ways. I'm actually more at home in Plymouth than I am in my hometown, and I've lived in my hometown all my life because I know more people here than I know at home. Part of the Rotary Club, I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce, so I have people on my staff that have served on many, many committees and many different boards, and that's part of what we do. We want to be part of the community.
Mark, in order to get to know our guests as we close, when you're not doing public access in Brockton, what do you do in your personal life? What do you like to do? Well,
right now, my parents took care of me all my life. They're aging, and I'm doing a lot of work with my parents. It's like my second job, which is fine. They're in Easton, right next door. I'm a school committee member at Southeastern Vocational Technical High School, 7 years. I love it because it's hands-on training. We have TV there now. We didn't have TV when I started. Library trustee for 20 years. First job I ever had before cable was in the library. I was a library page. So I'm the chairman of the board of trustees. I love my library. We did an expansion. Just active in the community. Rotary, I was the past president of Rotary. It just all ties back to community, and I love it. I'm not a beach goer. I'll burn my head to a crisp if I go to the beach. Okay.
I can attest to that. I've taken
I love community activities and events. We have concerts, we have all sorts of stuff that goes on, and some of the elected officials say, gee, you're there more than I am, and I'm like, gee, that's nice. You get paid for it, I don't, but that's okay. It all ties together to what I do, and I love it. It's just a lot of fun.
Nancy, what do you do in your spare time?
Oh, goodness. Well, I have lots of grandkids. I have grown children. I love to travel. I just got back from Scotland, actually. That was a great trip. I'm in Rotary. I'm the treasurer of the chamber right now. I also, in my home community, I serve, I'm the chair of the Cable Advisory Committee, which is sort of work-related in its own little way, just because it keeps you on your toes about what's coming down the pike. I love to read. I like to knit. I like to garden. I like to do all these things. I find myself loving just getting up in the morning and saying, "Wow, what am I going to do today?" So that's what I do in my personal time. My husband's a really talented cabinet maker, and so we work on our house. It's an endless project.
Mm-hmm. So Nancy Richard, thank you for personalizing PAC-TV as the CEO for PAC-TV. Great to have you here. And Mark, giving us a little comparison of public access from down the road in Brockton. Mark Linde as from Brockton Public Access TV. Thank you for being here as well.
Thank you, Steve.
And this completes this production of Plymouth Profiles. Plymouth Profiles is an opportunity to meet with people from the greater Plymouth community. We're delighted to have Mark Linde from Brockton and Nancy Richard, our CEO from PAC-TV. Please join us for future editions of Plymouth Profiles. Thank you.